Welcome back to Agro TV. Today we're shifting gears and taking a hard look at some of the most unfortunate looking tractors ever built. That's right, not every machine that hits the field is a beauty. In fact, some are downright bizarre. In this video, we're counting down the 13 worst looking tractors ever made, the ones that farmers didn't love, collectors rarely touch, and nobody's begging to bring back. Sure, they may have pulled their weight back in the day, but visually, these tractors look like engineering experiments gone a little sideways. From strange proportions and bulky designs to awkward lines and unusual features, this list is packed with machines that leave you wondering what the designers were thinking. Some are just plain ugly, others are unintentionally hilarious, and a few are so strange they almost become iconic in their own weird way. So buckle up as we take a ride through some of the most visually confusing tractors to ever roll out of the factory. This is going to be a fun, brutal, and honest look at agricultural design gone wrong. You're watching Agrith, and this is our list of the 13 worst looking tractors ever made. And trust us, nobody wants these back. Number 13. The Mahindra 4110 is a compact utility tractor that looks like it was designed with a ruler, a welder, and zero concern for curb appeal, and that's exactly what makes it memorable. It has the tall, upright exhaust stack of a construction rig, squared-off steel fenders, a flat slab front hood, and a work-ready stance that screams utility over aesthetics. Introduced in the early 2000s as part of Mahindra's aggressive expansion into the North American compact tractor market, the 4110 was aimed at small acreage farmers, landowners, and contractors looking for reliability, affordability, and raw pulling power without electronic bells and whistles. Beneath its rugged shell is a 3-cylinder, 1.5-liter, naturally aspirated diesel engine, generating approximately 41 horsepower and 32 horsepower at the PTO. That power is delivered through a 12-forward, 12-rev synchro shuttle transmission, ideal for loader tasks and jobs requiring frequent directional changes. Its manual gear layout offers long-term reliability and a mechanical connection that's preferred by many seasoned operators. Four-wheel drive is selectable, and hydraulic power steering makes tight maneuvering manageable despite its industrial demeanor, with a Category 1 3-point hitch at the rear and a lift capacity of over 2,000 pounds. It handles a wide variety of implements: rotary cutters, box blades, rear blades, tillers, and more. The open operator station is pure simplicity: metal floorboards, no cab, and analog gauges on a basic dash. There's no climate control, no touchscreen, and no plastic clutter, just heavy steel, thick levers, and a seat bolted to a machine that's ready to work from sunup to sundown. It's not flashy, but everything about the 4110 is overbuilt: cast iron axles, steel bodywork, and thick loader arms that outlast lighter competitors. While competitors like Kubota or John Deere offered more comfort and style, the 4110 appealed to those who wanted fewer electronics and more steel between them and the dirt. Its slightly awkward proportions and minimal styling make it look dated even by early 2000s standards. But its reputation for durability, simplicity, and affordable performance has kept it relevant among buyers who prize function over form. The Mahindra 4110 doesn't try to impress, it simply shows up, works hard, and dares you to underestimate it. Number 12. The John Deere 720 diesel is a beast of contradictions, massive yet simple, old school yet innovative, and undeniably strange looking by modern standards. Built from 1956 to 1958, the 720 diesel was part of Deere's legendary 2-cylinder lineup, affectionately nicknamed Johnny Poppers for their signature exhaust rhythm. But unlike most tractors of its day, the 720 diesel featured a unique 2-cylinder horizontal diesel engine paired with a small gasoline pony motor used to start it at workaround that gave it serious pulling power without needing complex electric starters. That 2-cylinder diesel was a brute, displacing nearly 67 cubic inches and producing around 59 horsepower on the drawbar and 65 on the PTO, making it one of the most powerful row crop tractors of its time. The sound alone was unforgettable, a deep, chugging pulse that made it sound more like a tugboat than a farm machine. Its styling is equally distinctive, with a long nose, flat belt pulley on the side, and massive pressed steel rear wheels that give it a tank-like profile. Operators sat high above the rear axle, behind a tall steering wheel and simple dash cluster, with a massive gearshift lever poking up from the floor like a sword in a stone. The clutch system was a manually operated hand clutch on the right side, a feature that required technique and experience but gave incredible control when used properly. The 720 was also one of the first John Deere models to offer power steering as an option, improving maneuverability on heavier implements and in tight row crop fields. It looked odd even back then, part locomotive, part mechanical experiment, and part farm icon. Yet beneath its unconventional looks and throaty diesel bark was a machine built to last and made to work. The John Deere 720 diesel may not match today's clean-lined, tech-filled tractors, but its raw power, character, and mechanical quirks have earned it a lasting place in tractor history, and it still turns heads wherever it rumbles. Number 11. The Ellis Jmer D21 didn't just look like a spaceship. Landed in a cornfield, it acted like one too. Launched in 1963, it was a radical departure from the more conservative, utilitarian tractors of the era. With its massive squared-off sheet metal, tall stance, and blazing orange paint job, the D21 looked like it had rolled out of a design experiment, and for good reason. This was the first Ellis Jmer's tractor to break the 100 horsepower barrier, a milestone that sent shockwaves through the agricultural world and launched a new horsepower war among major manufacturers. Powered initially by a 6.6-liter turbocharged diesel inline six, the D21 cranked out over 103 horsepower at the PTO. Later models reached even higher figures after factory tweaks. That big turbo under the hood gave it a deep, aggressive growl, and the boost pressure let farmers pull wider implements and cover more ground faster than ever before. The D21 was equipped with an 8-speed transmission and full power steering, and it offered comfort upgrades like a wide operator platform, suspended seat, and optional fenders with built-in fuel tanks that gave it a range suited for long workdays. But it was the styling that turned heads and split opinions. Everything about it was oversized and futuristic for the time. The squared-off grille and full-length side panels gave it a boxy, imposing front end that looked more like a diesel locomotive than a tractor, and the tall rear tires only emphasized its massive profile. The fenders sat high and flat, the nose was long and clean, and the orange paint bright, unapologetic, and proud made it stand out from the crowd of green and red machines. There was no mistaking a D21 in a lineup, and that was exactly the point. It wasn't just a tool, it was a statement. For Ellis Jmer's, the D21 was a bold leap forward, a declaration that they could lead the high horsepower revolution. And though it looked strange to traditionalists, it delivered where it mattered most: power, speed, and presence. The Ellis D21 may have looked like it came from another planet, but in the world of 1960s agriculture, it might as well have. What other tractor made this bold of an entrance and backed it up with raw, turbocharged muscle? Number 10. The white 22150 Field Boss is the kind of tractor that makes you stop, stare, and wonder if someone accidentally crossed farm machinery with a Cold War bunker, and in many ways, that's not far off. Released in 1976 during a time when white farm equipment was trying to reinvent its identity after absorbing brands like Oliver, Minneapolis Mullen, and Cockshot. The 22150 was one of the first models in the bold new Field Boss lineup. It looked nothing like the rounded, modestly styled machines of the 1960s. It was unapologetically angular, wearing hard creases, flat steel panels, and sharp lines like armor. The squared-off cab towered over the rear axle like a mobile command post, and the paint scheme bright white, black accents. And bold Field Boss badging gave it the presence of a machine that didn't just plow fields, but made declarations while doing it. At its core was a massive 7.8-liter, 6-cylinder diesel built by Minneapolis Mullen, naturally aspirated and tuned to deliver a solid 150 horsepower at the PTO. This wasn't a high-revving screamer, it was a low-torque brute, built to pull heavy implements through tough Midwest soil without breaking a sweat. Mated 2 whites over-under 18-speed transmission. The 22150 offered a combination of range and control that was ideal for variable field conditions. Operators could shift under load using the hydraulic shift-on-the-go feature, reducing fatigue during long runs and increasing productivity without sacrificing simplicity. It had full closed center hydraulics, dual-speed PT low, and a heavy-duty rear 3-point hitch capable of lifting and running some of the biggest tools available to row crop farmers at the time. But it wasn't just powerful, it was unapologetically different. The cab, nicknamed by some farmers as the Cube, featured a wide, flat roof, large tinted glass panes, and an operator environment that felt more industrial than agricultural. Inside, the layout was functional, if unconventional. Analog gauges sat in a deep dash. The controls were mostly mechanical and toggle-based, and everything felt oversized because it was comfort. Wasn't luxurious, but the space was ample. Visibility was excellent, and the whole experience felt like piloting a machine that wasn't messing around. Even the exhaust stack and air intake seemed oversized, giving the 22150 an almost militarized profile from the side. It looked strange in its day, and it still looks strange now, but there's a cult appreciation for that unapologetic weirdness. The white 22150 Field Boss wasn't trying to blend in, it was built to dominate. What other tractor looked like a rolling bunker and worked like a beast? Number 9. The Deutz DX160 is one of those tractors that looks like it was designed by someone who wanted to make a spaceship but only had access to farm equipment. Introduced in the early 1980s as part of Deutz Fahr's high-horsepower DX series, the DX160 was bold, bizarre, and completely unapologetic about it. Clad in bright lime green paint with contrasting black accents, Its angular styling stood in stark contrast to the soft curves and understated designs of its American competitors. The squared-off cab looked like a glass cube bolted to a machine, with massive flat panes of tinted glass, wide doors, and an elevated stance that made it seem more like a forest harvester or prototype defense vehicle than a row crop tractor. Inside, the layout was all function forward. A tall wraparound dash with mechanical switches, analog gauges, and a deeply bolstered air ride seat that gave operators a clear, commanding view in every direction. But its weirdness wasn't just skin deep under. The hood sat a 6-cylinder, air-cooled Deutz F6L913 turbocharged diesel engine, delivering approximately 160 horsepower. That air-cooled setup was a Deutz trademark and baffled many in a world dominated by liquid cooling, yet it worked brilliantly, offering lower maintenance, no coolant worries, and excellent fuel efficiency. The DX160 came with a fully synchronized 16-speed transmission, with optional creeper ranges and shift-in-the-move capabilities that gave it flexibility across plowing, planting, and heavy hauling. Four-wheel drive came standard, as did electro-hydraulic differential locks and a robust closed-center hydraulic system, making it more than just a bold visual statement. It was a tractor engineered for serious work, even if it looked like something from the set of Blade Runner Farm. Addition, the oversized fenders, tall stance, and dark glass gave it a commanding presence in the field, one that either inspired admiration or confusion depending on who was looking. Even decades later, the Deutz DX160 still turns heads, not just because of what it looks like, but because it dared to be different and delivered on performance anyway. What other tractor looked like a rolling sci-fi lab and still pulled like a heavyweight champion? Number 8. The Minneapolis Molen G1355 is the kind of tractor that looks like it was built by a committee of engineers who really liked rectangles, big engines, and doing things their own way in. The result is as weird as it is wonderful. Released in the early 1970s and built by Oliver under White Motor Corporation's umbrella, the G1355 was a short-lived but unforgettable entry in the high-horsepower row crop market. Its appearance alone set it apart: a massive slab-sided hood, squared-off fenders, a sharply upright grille with vertical bars, and that signature prairie gold paint gave it a blocky, almost architectural presence in the field. It looked less like a streamlined machine and more like a mobile diesel-powered fortress, and that vibe wasn't entirely off. Beneath the hulking hood sat a Mammoth 8, tuned to push out around 135 PTO horsepower with the kind of deep, throaty roar more often heard from industrial generators or construction equipment. This was a naturally aspirated brute, relying on raw displacement and torque rather than turbocharging. Power was transferred through a full 12-speed transmission with over-under shift capability, giving operators decent flexibility in the field, though shifting could be a workout thanks to its sheer mechanical nature. The G1355 featured heavy-duty final drives, large rear axles, and optional duals, making it ideal for pulling wide implements across tough terrain. The operator station was no frills, a flat platform design with basic analog gauges, big lever controls, and a tall, almost comically large, steering wheel positioned in front of a metal dash that looked more like it belonged in a grain truck than a tractor. Comfort was minimal: no enclosed cab from the factory, just a seat bolted behind an engine that vibrated like a V8 should. But while it lacked finesse, it had raw character in spades. The Minneapolis Molen G1355 wasn't about elegance or ergonomics. It was about power, steel, and a kind of mechanical stubbornness that appealed to the toughest operators. It looked strange, even by the standards of the 1970s, but that strangeness was part of its charm. What other tractor could wear Caterpillar, muscle, boxy steel, and a golden paint job and still pull it off like a legend? Number 7. The Porsche Diesel Jr 108 is the kind of tractor that makes people do a double take, partly because it's tiny, partly because it's bright red, and mostly because it has the word Porsche stamped on the side. Built in West Germany between 1957 and 1963, the Jr 108 was the smallest and most economical model in the Porsche diesel lineup, aimed at small farms, orchards, and vineyards where compact size and efficiency mattered more than brute force. But this little tractor didn't just stand out because of its size. It looked more like a mechanical beetle than a piece of heavy machinery. With soft curves, gracefully arched fenders, a narrow track, and a delicate tubular frame supporting the single front headlight, the 108 had a distinctly European charm. Its heart was a 678 cubic centimeter, air-cooled single-cylinder diesel engine, producing about 15 horsepower, enough to plow light soil, pull a small trailer, or run basic implements, all while maintaining incredible fuel efficiency. It was mated to a 3-speed manual gearbox with a high-low range, giving operators 6 forward speeds and 1 reverse. plus a rear differential lock for traction on uneven terrain. It may have been slow and basic by modern standards, but the Jr 108 was engineered with the same mechanical precision that defined the Porsche brand. Controls were minimal and clearly labeled. The ride was firm but reliable, and the mechanical simplicity meant farmers could easily maintain it themselves. The upright exhaust pipe and exposed linkages added to its quirky character, while its distinctive chugging rhythm made it instantly recognizable in the field or on parade. Today, collectors covet it not just for the Porsche badge, but for its iconic styling, rare mechanical layout, and undeniable charisma. The Porsche Diesel Jr 108 wasn't just a tractor. It was proof that even a 15-horsepower farm machine could carry the legacy of one of the world's most storied automotive brands. What other tractor makes you smile just by looking at it? Number 6. The Fiatalis HD11 is one of those machines that looks like it was designed to bulldoze through a mountain and then keep going without asking questions. Born from the merger of Fiat and Ellis Jmer in the 1970s, the HD11 inherited the brute strength of American earthmovers with a distinctly European industrial flair. At a glance, it resembles a scaled-down tank-low-slung tract with a squared-off steel cab and a massive front blade that looks more like a battering ram than a precision tool. Its looks are all business: rugged sheet metal, exposed hydraulics, oversized exhaust stack, and a no-nonsense stance that says, "Get out of my way." Powered by a turbocharged 6-cylinder diesel engine, producing around 120 to 150 horsepower, depending on the variant. The HD11 was built for pushing, ripping, and grading in tough terrain. It used a power-shift transmission for smooth gear changes under heavy load, and its undercarriage featured heavy-duty track rollers and a suspension system built to survive brutal job sites. The cab was Spartan just gauges, levers, and a rugged seat bolted inside a box of noise and vibration, but it was designed for visibility and control, not comfort. The Fiatalis HD11 may look strange to the uninitiated, but to earth-moving crews, it was a symbol of reliability and raw mechanical muscle. What other machine looks this tough and absolutely means it? Number 5. The Long 610 is a tractor that looks like it was designed by a team that prioritized simplicity, then forgot to call in the stylist, resulting in one of the more awkwardly charming machines to ever hit a field. Produced in the late 1970s and early 1980s by Long Manufacturing of North Carolina, the 610 was actually a rebadged Romanian-built UTB tractor, imported and adapted for American farms. Its tall, narrow front end, sharply creased sheet metal, and almost cartoonishly thin fenders gave it a quirky, upright silhouette that looked more homemade than factory polished. The bright blue paint and hand-stenciled style decals only added to the impression that this tractor was cobbled together in someone's barn, yet that oddball design hid a machine that was as tough as it was unrefined. Under the hood sat a 3-cylinder diesel engine producing around 60 horsepower, paired to an 8-speed manual transmission with a mechanical clutch and straightforward gear layout. There was nothing advanced about it: no electronics, no frills, and definitely no cab, but it could run basic implements, plow light soil, and pull small trailers with dependable grunt. Steering was manual, brakes were dry drums, and the operator station consisted of a thin seat, a few levers, and a dash that looked like it borrowed components from an old Eastern European truck. It wasn't comfortable, but it was serviceable, and for many small farmers and homesteaders, that was more than enough. What the Long 610 lacked in modern refinement, it made up for with mechanical honesty. It was cheap to run, easy to fix, and rarely overcomplicated. While its looks earned plenty of raised eyebrows, its persistence in the field turned skepticism into respect. The Long 610 may have looked like a misfit from another continent, but it dug in and did the work anyway. What other tractor looked this odd and earned its keep through nothing but grit and simplicity? Number 4. The Massie Ferguson 97 is a tractor that looks like it was built to haul freight trains more than work fields. Massive, loud, and unapologetically strange. Produced in the early 1960s, the MF97 wasn't actually built by Massie Ferguson at all. It was a rebadged Minneapolis Moline G705, and that DNA is obvious the moment you lay eyes on it. With its squared-off front end, towering profile, and long nose housing an enormous diesel engine, the 97 looked more like a piece of industrial equipment than a row crop tractor. What made it even weirder was the engine itself, a massive 11.2-liter General Motors 4271 two-stroke diesel that screamed like a banshee and puffed black smoke like a tugboat. The sound alone could shake barns, and its sheer size gave it a hulking presence in the field, putting out around 130 to 140 horsepower. It was designed for serious tillage and heavy-duty work, far beyond what most Massie-branded tractors were known for at the time. The cab, or more accurately, the operator platform, was open, basic, and sat high above the rear axle with large fenders that only emphasized its unusual proportions. Steering was heavy, controls were pure muscle, and the whole machine felt like a brute force solution to a mechanical problem. It wasn't refined, it wasn't subtle, but it worked. The Massie Ferguson 97 may have worn red paint, but it had Minneapolis Mullen weirdness baked in. What other tractor growled like a Detroit diesel and looked like it belonged in a steel yard? Number 3. The Case 1470 Traction King is a tractor that looks like it was designed in a bunker with a ruler, a wrench, and zero concern for aerodynamics. Blocky, blunt, and unapologetically bizarre. Introduced in the early 1970s, it marked Case's entry into the high-horsepower four-wheel drive market, and it did so with a machine that looked more like a mobile generator than a conventional tractor. With its sharply squared body panels, center-hinged articulated frame, and a cab mounted high above the pivot point like a command module, the 1470 had a silhouette unlike anything else in the field. Its appearance was almost tall, too boxy, too industrial, but every inch of it was engineered for traction and torque. Under the massive orange hood sat an 8.3-liter turbocharged diesel engine, pushing out around 150 horsepower and sending it to all four wheels through a mechanical drivetrain designed to chew through soil, not impress onlookers. The articulation joint in the center allowed it to pivot like a snake, making sharp turns despite its bulk, while the massive tires and rugged axles gave it serious pulling power on rough terrain. The cab, perched directly over that articulation point, gave operators a front row seat to every twist and sway of the machine as it moved, offering excellent visibility but also a ride that rocked and rolled with the frame. Inside, the layout was as bare bones as the exterior: analog gauges, thick levers, hard plastic panels, and enough room to feel more functional than comfortable. There was no attempt at sleek design or ergonomic finesse. It was a steel box built to survive years of punishing fuel. The 1470 looked strange, even by 1970s standards, but it carved out a loyal following by delivering real performance in big acreage operations. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't smooth, but it could outpull just about anything else in its class. The Case 1470 Traction King may have looked like a bright orange rolling toolbox, but it earned its crown with sheer mechanical force. What other tractor looked this odd and pulled it off so convincingly? Number 2. The Steiger Puma 1000 is a tractor that looks like it was built for a post-apocalyptic farming colony: aggressively square, impossibly green, and completely unapologetic in its presence. Produced during the late 1970s, the Puma 1000 was part of Steiger's heavy-duty four-wheel drive lineup, a family of machines born in the plains of North Dakota and built for raw pulling power, not subtle design. It featured the signature Steiger lime green paint, an articulated frame that let the whole machine bend in the middle like a giant metal snake, and a cab that sat high above the chassis like a lookout tower bolted to a steel beast. The entire design was unapologetically functional: huge dual wheels front and rear, sharp body lines, oversized exhaust and intake stacks, and a boxy silhouette that made it look more like a military vehicle than farm equipment. Under its massive hood roared a Cummins NTC 276-cylinder turbocharged diesel engine, churning out approximately 270 horsepower and backed by a heavy-duty manual transmission designed for continuous high-load operation. Full-time, four-wheel drive, planetary final drives, and thick axles gave it unmatched traction in deep soil or uneven terrain, while the articulation joint allowed the Puma to turn on a dime despite its hulking frame. Climbing into the cab meant ascending a steel ladder into what felt like the cockpit of a mobile crane. Wide glass panels, minimal creature comforts, mechanical levers, and analog gauges all pointed to one thing: control. There was nothing electronic, nothing fancy, just mechanical honesty and serious power. The Puma 1000 didn't try to look modern or sleek. It looked like it meant business because it absolutely did. Farmers didn't buy it for comfort, they bought it because it could dominate a field like few others. The Steiger Puma 1000 may have looked like a Cold War prototype in neon green, but it earned every bit of its cult status by working harder and lasting longer than anything else in its weight class. What other tractor looked this extreme and still made perfect sense behind the wheel? Number 1. The Big Bud 16V747 is less of a tractor and more of a rolling monument to mechanical excess. It's the largest farm tractor ever built, and it absolutely looks the part. Created in 1977 by Northern Manufacturing Company in Montana, the 16-volt 7x7 stands nearly 14 feet tall, 27 feet long, and weighs over 100 tons when fully ballasted. Its design is unapologetically massive: a wide, flat cab perched atop an enormous articulated frame with huge dual tires that look like they belong on mining equipment rather than a field. Power comes from a 16-cylinder Detroit diesel engine delivering over 900 horsepower, originally built for pulling a custom 80-foot cultivator across vast fields in the American West. The cab is surprisingly spacious but Spartan, focused on utility rather than comfort, with large windows and a commanding view of whatever it's about to crush. It looks more like a military hauler than a farm implement, and that's part of its strange appeal. The Big Bud 16V747 isn't just weird looking, it's borderline surreal. What other tractor needs a ladder just to climb in and clears a path like a land-eating beast?